Hello and welcome to the Evercade Retreat. My name is Gene Joke and today I'm ranking and reviewing all the games from the C64 Collection 3. Cut the preamble short. I think everyone's familiar with the C64 and the oddities of the games after 3 collections. I think I've probably said all that needs to be said in regards to them. So the question is, how does this collection compare to the others? Well, let's get on with the ranking and I'll give my overall thoughts at the end. I'm and
Number 13.
Street Sports Soccer is obviously another in the series of the street sports games where you have a bunch of kids playing, sports on the street, much like the others. Again, you pick your team members and this, that and the other. And while Street Sports Basketball was a pretty good basketball game, Street Sports Soccer is a really abysmal football game. One of the worst football games on the Evercade. There's really nothing to be excited about here. The best elements, like the presentation, everything, are pretty much just lifted from the previous games. And yeah, it's rubbish really. So yeah.
Number 12.
Breakdance is well, I suppose you could loosely call it a breakdance simulator, but essentially it's like a rhythm game or a Simon Says game. It's very basic, it's really not my cup of tea. I get nothing out of these sorts of games. I never had any enthusiasm or excitement for breakdancing as a kid. This is a very simple game. There are a few game modes and, I suppose it tries. Again, this is something that's really not for me. It's not a gameplay style I really enjoy, and there's just no draw for me at all. Graphically, it's passable at best, and yeah, it's just not a good game in my opinion. I know some people like it, find it quite chill and relaxing in a certain respect, or like some game modes. Yeah, it's just a game I can't be bothered with.
Number 11.
Supercycle is a motorcycle racing game for the C64. It doesn't look too bad for a C64 game, but it's certainly no Pit Stop 2. Sure, it's fine as a budget game at the time, and yeah, it's fine for what it is. It's pretty much the best I can say. I don't hate it, I don't love it either. It's just okay. It doesn't really have anything special. It's quite a simple game. You're against the clock. It is geared controls, but they're easy to master. The corners are a bit of a pain at first, but again you can get used to them, and it's not a particularly challenging racing game either. Yeah, it's fine.
Number 10.
Netherworld is a multi-directional shoot 'em up which I played back in the day. It's quite interesting. I always actually found the cover more interesting than the game itself. The original cover was quite unique. The game itself I do quite like. It's very C64, has some very unique quirks. Like I said, it's a multi-directional shoot 'em up, and it's not obvious what you've got to do. You have a fairly strict time limit. Your ship gyroscope thing, whatever it is, bounces off platforms and walls quite irritatingly at times, and the game is a little bit obtuse in some ways. I don't mind it, and like I say, as a kid I liked it, although I never knew what I was doing. I never got very far, and once I got to know what I was doing, I quite enjoyed playing through it. But going back to it, I find I can't be bothered. It's not a bad little game, it's just not great, which is why it's ended up mid-tier.
Number 9.
Jumpman Jr. is essentially part of Jumpman. It's largely the same game with a few mild tweaks, fewer levels, although they are more challenging. If you like the first Jumpman, you'll like this one. It's more of the same. I was a bit lukewarm on it. It's fine in that, and this is pretty much the same. I do appreciate the slight tweaks, like having a speed mode on the menu, but again, I really have nothing much to say about this game. It's fine, but the irritations of the original game are still there, and with more challenging levels, yeah, it's okay, it's fine. Just not a huge fan. I mean, I do quite like my single screen platform games like this, but it's just, I've always found Jumpman just a little bit awkward and irritating rather than fun.
Number 8.
Summer Games 2 is exactly what you'd expect. It's more Olympic style events in the style of the game series that Epix did. It's another good one. What's interesting here is it basically includes Summer Games 1 and 2 as a double package, because back in the day you could play the events off both and kind of almost merge them anyway, so essentially that's what you get here, which makes the Summer Games one on the C64 one a little bit redundant. The new events in this game, yeah, they're pretty good. I mean, it's solid. Like all the other games, your mileage will vary on them. I'm fine with them. I like them in the right circumstances, as I've pretty much said with every review of every game in this series. I don't really have much new to add here. Each event plays a little bit differently. You can have fun with them, best multiplayer or playing with others or on a competition with others, fine under the right circumstances.
Number 7.
As you would imagine, Stormlord 2 is the sequel to Stormlord, which has been on a previous C64 collection. This time around it's less of a puzzle adventure like Dizzy and what have you, and more of a straightforward action game. Although it's not that straightforward. Well, it is, but it isn't. The jumping is weird. You have a strange triple jump thing that takes some getting used to. Time your second and third jumps wrong and you won't, and then you're going to die. And you will die a lot in this game. You start off with like 9 lives and you need them. The game is unforgiving but very learnable if you have the patience to learn it, and I suspect many people don't. Fortunately on the Evercade we have save states so you can abuse the hell out of them and maybe have a bit more fun on this game than you would if you were playing it on original hardware. You also don't have the loading times. The bosses can seem very difficult, but again, once you learn the patterns or learn where you basically have to sit and not take damage and basically unleash your fireballs on them, you can work out how to destroy them fairly easily. It is a tough game overall, and it's definitely got some very unique and very C64 style quirks, and if you can overlook the shortcomings of the game, there is fun to be had here. But like I said, I really don't think many people will persevere and learn it. Now, I played this back in the day. Once again, I played the Spectrum version, and I quite enjoyed it back then, although I never got very far. And playing on the Evercade, initially, I just found it just too irritating, especially that jumping. But again, once I did, and I persevered with it, I did have a lot of fun with it. So, yeah, not for everyone, definitely, but not completely horrible.
Number 6.
Cyberoid 2 is very much a sequel to Cyberoid, which was on one of the previous C64 collections. It's largely more of the same. The main sprite has been redesigned, there's a few little differences, but the core flick screen gameplay is pretty much intact. So if you like the first one, you like this one. Interestingly enough, this is the first Cyberoid game I played, but I played the Spectrum version, and I really liked that. And this one, well, it's good. It's a good game. There's just one minor problem with this game. It's a cracked version with a cheat baked in. If you're pressing one of the weapon select buttons and the fire button at the same time, you'll perform a level skip. Yeah, every time. So playing this game fully, well, it's quite easy to end up cheating without meaning to. The last word from Blaze was that they weren't going to fix it because apparently it would reset people's saves, and I guess they didn't really feel it was worth the effort. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah, whatever. I mean, you can play through the game without using the level skip, but you just have to be careful when you're selecting that specific weapon. Yeah, they really should get on and fix it.
Number 5.
Cyberdyne Warrior is a run and gun game. Of a sort, it's definitely an unconventional run and gun game as you'd only find on the home micros. It's flip screen, which is fine because the sprites are small. I mean, it works quite well. Visually, it's nice enough. Again, very typically C64, but it has a charm to it. As you might tell from the title, there's definitely a bit of a Terminator inspired element to it. You run through these levels collecting robots and you can upgrade, get health upgrades, weapon upgrades and so on and so forth. It's very non-linear, and when you first start playing it you might think, oh, this is quite fun, and then you get to a point where you're thinking, okay, what am I doing? And it seems a bit awkward and frustrating, and there's some irritations with it. But if you persevere and get into the game, give it a chance and learn what you're doing, it does start becoming fun again. In true C64 and home micro fashion, it's not an instant arcade action blast like you might expect when you first start playing it. And like I said about all these games, if you persevere you can have a lot of fun with it, and I end up really enjoying it. Once again, this is a game that I played as a kid and I liked it, but I had no idea what I was doing, never got past the first level. I always kept coming back to it trying to work out what to do, but failed because I was a kid and I didn't have any instructions. It's a solid game if you can put the effort in.
Number 4.
Anarchy is a top-down shoot-'em-up puzzler. Well, it's not really a shoot-'em-up, it is more of a puzzler. You drive your tank around, you shoot blocks, shoot all the blocks on the level, go to the exit, you win the level. Of course, it's not that straightforward. This is a game that I played as a kid and I'd completely forgotten about it. When this collection was announced and the game was shown, I didn't recognise it. It wasn't until playing it that it became familiar, and it's mostly because of the sounds. Effectively, when you're shooting blocks things, there is a kind of almost a musical element to the sound effects. As I mentioned, there is a puzzle element to the game, and essentially you can't shoot blocks right next to you. You have to have the squares or a tile's difference or space between you and the tile you want to shoot. This means positioning for shooting certain blocks is part of the puzzle. Also, there are enemies and other things you have to factor in. But yeah, essentially it is a puzzle game disguised as a shoot 'em up. And it's more fun than you would think from my description. It might take you a few levels to warm into the game, but once you do, I think you'll find it quite compelling. At least I certainly did anyway. And from what I've heard, this does tend to be quite a popular game on this collection, so yeah, that's probably why it's ended up quite high in the ranking.
Number 3.
Exelon is a flick screen walk and run game. I say walk and run rather than run and gun because, well, he's not that quick. You control a sort of sci-fi space soldier called Vitork. Armed with a gun and rocket propelled grenades, you make your way across various screens, taking out gun emplacements, various odd enemies from bouncing balls to like missiles and spaceships, as well as avoiding landmines and pneumatic presses. Some screens have teleporters, there's ammo scattered around, and halfway through each level there's an upgrade pod which will improve your armour if you use it and give you a double shot. It will also allow you to walk over landmines and through the pneumatic pumps. And if you stay on one screen for too long, an enemy will come on and pretty much beeline for you and kill you. So you've got to keep yourself moving. Many of the enemies' spawns are very much randomised, which can certainly increase the difficulty. It's a very challenging game, also quite trial and error. Getting the timing right, whether it's on some of the jumps or avoiding the pneumatic pumps, can be quite frustrating. This is a game that I played on the ZX Spectrum as a kid and I really liked it. Again, being a bit of a sci-fi nerd, the aesthetics appealed to me. I got fairly good at it. I think I could beat the first level but not much more. Comparing it to console games of the era, yeah, it doesn't really have that kind of fast fluid gameplay you might have had. But I have a soft spot for this game and I really like it. It's one of my favourite games on the collection. Although I think for people that don't have nostalgia for it, this one might not be so appealing.
Number 2.
Heavy Metal Paradroid, or rather just Paradroid, is considered something of a C64 classic. It's another game by Andrew Braybrook, who you might hear me mention in some of the other videos. He developed a lot of interesting and well-regarded games for the C64, and this is probably one of the most famous, if not the most famous. You control a robot and you've got to go around a space station or a spaceship and destroy all the other robots. It's not as straightforward as that because you have to go and possess them, which brings up a little mini game. And it's a game I've always really liked. It's essentially a multi-directional shoot 'em up with quirks, if you like, as I've just explained. I played this as a kid. I really liked it. I liked the idea of possessing other robots, becoming a bit more powerful and so on and so forth. It's quite freeform. You have to explore and work your way through, and it's not obvious what you've got to do as such. And I would say it's one that you definitely need to read the manual for. But like I said with many of these games, learning the game and finding out what you've got to do really pays off and it rewards you essentially. It's considered a classic for a reason, and yeah, I'm a huge fan of it, and if it wasn't a game that I had to be in the right mood for to really sit down and enjoy, whereas others are maybe a bit more pick up and play, this would probably be top of the list. A genuine C64 classic. Boulder Dash is a classic. Run around collecting diamonds, get to the exit. Dig through the ground, avoid dropping blocks or make them drop so you can access where you need, and there's puzzles involved. The further you get into the game, the more devious the puzzles get, requiring more thought and just essentially just using your brain a bit. And yeah, it's a fun game. I've always really liked it. I first played it on the C64, and although I have played other versions, this is the version I have played the most. Always had a lot of fun with it. Have a lot of fun, almost like trying to do the levels as quickly as I can, really rushing through, pushing the boundaries of what I can get away with in regards to making things drop and dodging out of the way, and that's the reason it's ended up as my favourite on this collection. Sure, you might be looking at thinking, well, it doesn't look like much graphically, it doesn't look very exciting, and you might be right, but there is a very compulsive one more try sort of aspect to the gameplay, and like I said, some of the levels later on do get quite devious and they can be a bit head scratching as you try and work out how on earth you're going to do a level when you can't actually access or there isn't enough diamonds on levels to beat it. And before I actually do my final thoughts, there is a bonus game. If you put in C64 2 and 3, you will unlock Synapse, which is a side-scrolling shoot 'em up. I'm actually a bit bemused as to why this wasn't included as one of the main games on the collection. It's quite a well-regarded little shoot 'em up for the C64 and quite a good bit of fun. I'd say better than the shoot 'em ups on the other collections. Still, whatever, we can still play it as long as you've got a VS or an Alpha. Anyway, moving on to my
final opinions.
This is a good collection in my opinion. Again, your mileage on C64 may vary. I think it's the most pick up and play of the C64 collection so far, and in some ways maybe this should have been the first one. But hey ho, you have got a couple of absolute classics, games that I've got nostalgia for, and you've got a well-rounded sort of selection of games. Some will surprise you, some will frustrate you, but overall I think it is a solid collection. Given a collection a score, it will be a 7.5 out of 10, much like the others, purely because it's C64 and I know many people don't get on with these games, they can't get on with the graphics, they don't like the not particularly casual and easy to get into gameplay, although this is a bit more pick up and play, still very much home micro games, and with they carry all that brings to the table. Anyway, I think that's it for this video, so as usual I'll leave out with a silly song based on one of the games, and I'll see you in the next video.
Treasures gleam, the pixelated caverns, it's a digger's dream. Dodging rocks that tumble and fall, gotta grab those gems, gotta grab them all. For one wrong move and the boulders crash, it's the ultimate test in Boulder Dash. Dash for diamond, shine so bright, buried in the darkness, hidden from the light. With every step, gotta make it last, chasing my fortune in Boulder Dash. Enemies lurking, they're out to get me. Fireflies and amoebas, gotta stay free. Strategize my moves, escape the trap, navigate the caves with my trusty map. One wrong step and it's back to the start. This game of risk will steal your heart. Dash for diamond, shine so bright, buried in the darkness, hidden from the light. With every step, gotta make it last, chasing my fortune in Boulder Dash. The clock is ticking, no time to waste. Every gem I find leaves a sweeter taste. The thrill of the dig, the danger is real. This underground world has its own appeal. Dash for diamond, shine so bright, buried in the darkness, hidden from the light. With every step, gotta make it last, chasing my fortune in Boulder Dash. So here's to the diggers with courage and flair. For every gem uncovered, a tale we share. Through the caves and the rubble, let the legacy clash. Forever we play the legend of